Dr. Branch here. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the field of epistemology, that is, the theory of knowledge. Seems like a silly question. How do we know what we know? But it is a question that has concerned philosophers since the very beginning. And not only philosophers, but believe it or not, even scientists. Very earliest philosophers, the Greeks, consider the question of why are there things that seem to change and things which do not seem to change. The things that seem to change, of course, is everything around us. And yet we have ideas. And ideas don't seem to change. They seem to exist almost in an independent state. And so there comes the question of the difference between the form, the idea, and matter. Perhaps the first great attempt to solve this problem was that of Plato. Plato believed that in reality there are two worlds. First is the world of ideas, which exists separately from this world. In one sense, you could say it's a spiritual world, where the perfect idea exists. And these perfect ideas give form to the material things, the matter of this world. And the extent to which the matter shares in the form is the extent to which the thing actually is what it is. So, let's say, for example, that somewhere in this ideal world there is a perfect tree. It gives its form, or at least part of its form. It may share other forms with the trees that we know. Now, the extent to which we can recognize it as a tree depends on how much of the perfect tree it shares. Some of us already see that when we go out and we look and we see a tulip tree. It says that's a tree. Shares most of the characteristics, although there are some trees that do not share those characteristics. And we look in a nandina bush, which may have some characteristics that are tree-like, but we'd say it's a bush, it's not a tree. It's definitely doesn't share the characters of treeness. Well, that sounds kind of silly, but actually it's not. Well, how do we know these things? Plato explained how we know these things in his famous allegory of the cave. You have a group of people who are chained in the back of a cave facing toward the back of the cave. They're chained where they cannot move. On the back of the cave, of the wall of the cave, they see all types of figures moving. Of course, what they cannot see is at the front of the cave, there's a fire which is going. And the reflection from the fire casts the shadows on the back of the cave. Now, they can't actually see the fire, which is the form, but they can see these shadowy existence things, which are matter. So for Plato, the real world is the world of ideas. What you and I see is purely matter, which doesn't have real existence. So, for example, the soul. The soul exists as an idea. It is immortal, unchangeable, and that's how we conceive it. Because it is a soul, it has certain characteristics, and we can see whether or not men have souls. But we realize, of course, that because this idea is unchangeable, that when the matter is destroyed, when the human body is destroyed, the soul goes on. Now you can see how this idea was